All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations on taking the first step to home ownership, which was signing up for this seminar. We're really excited. We have a great panel to go over the process step by step and cover all your questions. So what do you want to learn about the home buying process? We're here to answer all the questions and take away all the guessing. My name is Natalia Paulino. I'm an agent with Keller Williams Realty. I'm located out in Brooklyn. I've been licensed for 7 years now, and I love what I do. I have worked with buyers, sellers, investors, people relocating, and because my company is actually nationwide, or shall I say global, I've been able to help people relocate as well. So on the panel today, we also have Demetrius.
Good morning, everyone.
So,
Uh, I'm a mortgage loan originator with U.S. Bank. We are the fifth largest bank in the country. I've been originating mortgages for a little over 5 years. Just like Natalia, I love what I do. Um, Always looking for opportunities to help people and looking forward to today's call.
thank you. And we also have Igor on here as well, one of our presenters.
Good morning, guys. Igor Lifkin here with Moshe's Law. I'm a director of business and development for the law firm. We're mostly a real estate transactional firm. I've been in the industry for about 20 years now, a little bit over, and I've been with the firm for about 15 years. I'm happy to be here. Happy Veterans Day, everybody. And I'm happy to give some inside information and the biggest, largest financial decision of buyers and sellers' lives.
Thank you. And then we also have Miss Jenny.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jenny Escobar. I've been a financial advisor for 23 years. I started at the age of 20, and the only thing I knew about money was that I had none. So it definitely has been an amazing journey filled with beautiful things. We have a few offices out here on the island and in other states. And I'm very grateful because we get to talk to lovely folks just like yourselves about the importance of our relationship with money. And I'm not a realtor, I'm not a loan officer. However, the best investments I've made myself are purchasing homes. So I hope to give you some insight on that too, and the importance of making sure that you're covered, God forbid you pass away, so that we don't lose that beautiful asset we worked so hard to achieve for.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the realities of the market. What's going on right now? Because there's just a lot of news out there that you can find, a lot of scary news that's coming out about a market crashing or that homes aren't selling, people aren't buying, like nobody's moving. And that's just not the reality of what's really going on, right? So we want to cover that. Right now, as far as the average home price, we're kind of seeing it closer to the high sixes, which is great. It's still strong. We're seeing really good home sales. We're seeing homes selling at asking or above. There's still a little bit of negotiation room as far as pricing goes, but the market's still very strong. And that leads into like, are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market? So I think everybody got so used to and comfortable with what was going on during COVID. It was just crazy. There was such a rush. People were paying crazy amounts over asking, and they were waiving contingencies that we'll go over later in the process, just because they wanted to have a home. You know, they were so caught up in low interest rates. And now everything's starting to slow down. People are still moving, they're still buying and selling, just not at the pace that they were doing during COVID. And we are still getting, you know, offers over asking. We're still getting multiple offers, but instead of having 50 offers, maybe we're getting closer to like 10 to 15 offers on a sale. And that's with homes that are priced correctly. Um, and then with that, we also, you know, if you want to speak a little bit about what's going on with interest rates, Dimitri, you can go over that as well.
Sure. You know, interest rates obviously have been increasing over time over the past 24 months. It's something, we can't really control. So I think as potential buyers who made the decision that the goal of home ownership is important to them, um, I think, obviously buying a home is an exciting event, right? But we also have to be prepared. So how do we prepare for that journey? Right? Number one, obviously, is determine how much we can afford. So there's two ways we can do that. One would be a pre-qualification, which would be like a starting point here, where it's more of a hypothetical scenario where, for example, income is not, it's stated and not verified. It's just a general idea of what you. Number two would be a pre-approval slash a committed credit approval, what we call. That's a full application process. So a full application is taken, income is verified, there is a credit inquiry, and we're gathering documents. And the great part about it is there's no cost to it. So you can determine how much you can afford at no cost, a fully committed, underwritten approval, which you can then go out and shop with. And it's a really easy process. Um, we send you out a secure online application. You upload documents directly from financial institutions, payroll providers, tax preparers throughout the whole application process. And it gives you a straightforward solution to get a mortgage in a competitive purchase market. Because even with high rates, guys, it's still very competitive out there. So your fully underwritten commitment will give you, very good negotiating power out there, and at the same time help you close the loan on.
As far as like where interest rates are at, I mean, it's pretty much safe to say that it's not going to be what it was during COVID, right? Like the whole 2%, 3%, stuff like that.
Correct, correct. Prior to COVID, rates were, 4.5%, 5%. That
Right,
is a normal market.
right,
So heading into 2024, we have an election year, obviously, which does play a big role, whether people realize that or not. The commercial real estate side as well is a big factor here in where interest rates land, because from coast to coast, there's approximately 3 trillion in commercial mortgages that are due to adjust. So that could bring a lot of pain if interest rates are still sitting here in the 7-8% range. So I think second half of 2024, we could get some improvement. But again, the Federal Reserve, they're the ones that make the decisions. I know this economy cannot sustain these high rates for over a period of an extended time. So we'll see.
we'll see what happens. I always like to tell people we can only focus on what we know right now, right? We can't predict the future.
Yep.
So if it makes sense now, make a move, right? You can't
100%.
rub a crystal ball and hope for this might happen in the next year or 2 years. We don't know what's going to happen.
No, we don't. We don't. If you find a home that fits, this loan as well is not long term. It's not for the entire 30-year period. At some point, you will get the opportunity to refinance and save a bunch of money. And at the same time, build equity, because real estate is inflation adjusted, right? So as inflation continues to go higher, so will homes.
Right. Okay, so let's get started. We basically narrowed down the whole home buying process into 6 steps, which you see right here, which is hiring an agent, securing your pre-approved financing, finding the home, making an offer, inspection, negotiating the terms, of course, the contract, and then close and protect your investments. So let's get started, which is hiring your agent like myself. So typically, there's always going to be 2 agents involved in a transaction. which would be the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. Self-explanatory, the seller's agent is going to be working for the seller, getting the best terms for them, best price for them. And when you work with the buyer's agent, their main goal is to protect you, work in your best interest, get you the best price and the best terms, moving forward on your purchase. So one of the jobs that an agent does is just kind of educate you on the market. Like we were talking about average home sales pricing. We would cover, what comparable homes are selling for. That way, when you're ready to make an offer, you're making an educated offer and you're not making an offer that's going to offend the seller and toss your offer out of the equation in the very beginning. We sit down, we analyze your wants and your needs, and we really try to focus on your needs more than your wants, because at the end of the day, when we narrow that down, that's going to make you feel in love with your home, happy with your purchase. You're not going to deal with buyer's regret because you're going to have everything that you need in your home. So coordinating, one other job that we work with is coordinating the entire team, because it does take a team to get you to the closing table. We have an attorney, we have the lender. Well, we actually have two attorneys that we're going in between as well. There's just a lot of people that are involved in the entire process. And my job is to make sure communication is going on between everybody, following up with everybody, just making sure that nobody drops the ball. I also go hand in hand with the attorneys to help negotiate a little bit of the terms. Sometimes it's easier for myself to talk to the listing agent and go over what the seller is willing to do or not do, and just cut a lot of the back and forth on that goes on. And then we communicate with the attorney and just kind of make everything a lot more seamless moving forward. And then we go into the secured. And then of course we have Dimitri coming in. If you want to just briefly go over again what you were talking about with the pre-approval process.
Sure. Just to recap, right? We want to determine how much, each buyer can afford. So, we have the two options: pre-qual, which is again just really just a piece of paper. There's no substance behind it. It's just, like we said, hypothetical scenarios, and then an actual pre-approval, which is a full application, where income is verified, with, financial documents, financial institution statements, payroll, W-2s, tax returns, a credit inquiry as well. Gathering all these documents, and you'll get a fully underwritten pre-approval within days, just a few days. So, we send you out, like I said, a secure online application using, a computer, an iPhone, a tablet. It's really easy. It takes you about 15 minutes to complete. And you can also receive and sign disclosures early, even on the go. And like I said, it just gives you that straightforward solution to get a mortgage in still a competitive purchase in New York, because at the end of the day, guys, it's simple supply and demand, right? So low inventory, not enough homes, and there's still so many buyers. So the next slide, I believe, is we want to choose a loan that fits your needs, right? So what are some of the lending options, benefits, and things to consider as well? So one would be a fixed rate mortgage, which interest rate, monthly payment, and interest payments remain the same for the life of the loan. So you want to consider this move when you plan to stay in the home for several years, right? Number two would be an adjustable rate mortgage, which is, a fixed interest rate for a set period up to 10 years. And that's something to consider if you plan to move in the next several years. There's the third option would be like an FHA, a Federal Housing Administration loan, which has flexible down payment options, as low as 3.5%. For someone who wants to consider this, they want a smaller down payment. So those are really your three general options when it comes to choosing a loan that fits. So these are things you want to consider along with, the bank. So to piggyback off of that, a few tips what we want to do while, shopping for a home and the whole pre-approval process is, when it comes to our credit score, which obviously, is one of the most important factors in coming to a decision, is number one, we want to stay current on our accounts, right? We want to make sure all our bills are being paid on time. We want to continue to use credit as normal. At the same time, we want to maintain employment, right, for obvious reasons. We want to keep our bank accounts in good standing. We want to protect our credit scores and limit any new inquiries. So those are just a few tips of what we can do. Now, what are some tips we want to avoid, right? So one would be like applying for any sort of new credit lines. Number two would be obviously not maxing out your credit cards. Number three probably would be try to consolidate any debt. Like, for example, like paying off like collections or charge-offs, transferring money between accounts, withdrawing large sums, or depositing large sums of money. So those are just a few things we want to consider between the pre-approval, right? How much we can afford. You want to choose a loan that fits your needs and wants, and some of the things we want to continue to do when it comes to credit, and some of the things we want. So, I
Did we lose you? I think he might have froze. Okay, so we'll wait for him to jump back on. I was about to ask him a question, but maybe I'll ask him when he gets back. Oh no, what's going on here? Trying to go back, not forward. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second. The slides started to go in the wrong direction. There we go.
Taking a pause.
Huh?
I said we're taking a pause, and he's back. No.
Did he get back on?
No, not yet.
Okay, so we'll keep moving along, and then when he comes back on, he can go back to where he left off. So yeah, so now you've met your agent, you've secured financing, you've met with your lender. Let's move on to the actual home search. I do have an app that is very user friendly, makes it a lot easier to communicate between you and me. We can send each other properties. We can make notes on these properties together. We can create collections to put specific homes together based on neighborhoods. I have noticed that a lot of my buyers know where they want to live, but there's a few that are kind of like looking in between multiple neighborhoods. So the good thing with this app is we can actually put each home that you're interested in into a specific neighborhood, and we're not getting confused on where we're looking. And then it also helps us realize, hey, maybe, a specific neighborhood is getting a lot more, there's a lot more options for you in that area that makes a lot more sense. Or if you're, researching the schools, things like that, let's just focus on that neighborhood by itself. So that is, well, I'll send over that link to anybody that wants to start looking. You can start browsing. It is nationwide, so you can look anywhere in the United States. Or if you have friends or family as well that want to look along, you can share that app with them. And like I mentioned before, it really starts from the beginning of really writing down and focusing on what you need over, what you just want, what makes the most sense, the functionality of the home. If you're a cook, if you love to cook, if you like to host, then we want to keep that in mind when we're looking at the kitchen size or the living room, the dining room size, to make it work for your lifestyle. There's some people who are more focused on the bedroom size. They don't even care if they have a living room. They don't even have a TV in the living room, whatever the case is. It's really just going over that consultation, learning what you really need in your home to make that. When we go out and search homes, we can start narrowing down and save a lot of time. I would say on average, my buyers will usually look about 10 homes max, and then they'll make a decision off of those 10. There's been a rare occasion where I've shown more than that, but I would say on average by 10 houses, people find what they want and need, because we've already done the consultation in depth to really narrow it down, and we're not running around like crazy. I've met buyers who told me they were looking on their own for months and they couldn't find anything. And then after speaking with them and talking with them and seeing what they're doing, it was crazy, because they're looking on places like Zillow. And Zillow has some filters, but it doesn't have every filter. And they don't have somebody helping kind of narrow it down for them. So they were just wasting a lot of time, or they're driving around and they'll stop at any open house sign to go look at the house, and then they get disappointed because they find out the house is, $1 million and they can only afford 800,000. So knowing your budget, knowing what you want from the beginning saves a lot of time and effort for everybody. Don't get me wrong, I love going to look at all these beautiful houses, but it gets draining, and then some clients start to get discouraged when they're looking at stuff that don't match what they really want and need. And then, of course, once we find a home that you like, we've already gone through the step to know what you can actually offer because you have your pre-approval done, which is great. And we'll walk through, I'll usually prepare a comparative market analysis for my buyers so they can see what homes is sold for in the neighborhood, homes that match whatever we're going to put an offer on, so they know exactly what range they want to stay in versus coming in like 50,000 below asking, or like 100. I don't know about 100, but well below what's asking, thinking that they're going to get a really good deal. And my job is to be real, like help them be realistic and say like, no, that's not going to happen, because every house in this neighborhood has sold at asking, or maybe like 5,000 below asking. But right now, homes are moving, that gap of selling below asking is rare. And if it is, it's because the house was probably overpriced to begin with, where they had that little extra room to go under, but doesn't necessarily mean that that house is worth less than what they're willing to accept. And then once we do go through and have the accepted offer, the next step would be scheduling an inspection. That way you know exactly what you're walking into, you understand the condition of the home. And it's really important that everybody understands that we're focused on the big stuff. We're focused on safety concerns, structural concerns. We're not nitpicking on the color of the paint on the wall, or maybe like a loose drawer in the kitchen, or whatever the case is. We're focused on structural stuff. Is there cracks in the foundation that might need to be addressed? Are there water stains in the ceiling? Does it look like the roof needs to be repaired? These are all really big things that can get costly, that you want to know in advance, which is why we have the inspector. And know in advance what we need to, relay over to your attorney, right? So once we have that done, we go to the attorney and they help draft out the contract.
Oh, that's great. Well, I guess where I come in,
Yeah.
our law office, Moshe's Law Office of Yuri Moshe's, we have a staff of 4 attorneys, 8 paralegals, administrators, myself as the director of business and development. And guys, hiring a real estate attorney is vital because real estate transaction is a significant financial decision, probably the largest financial decision of any purchaser. And attorneys provide a crucial legal guidance to ensure that all the contracts and the agreements in the best interest of you, the buyer. We act as deal makers, helping to navigate complex negotiation and really protecting the buyer's rights. So, buying a home is a significant step, and understanding the nuances of the contract is crucial. So now that Natalie got you to the step where spend 6 months or a year with you finding a property and finally getting it down to this particular property, and you put in an offer and accepted offer, at that point she says, now you have to hire an attorney. And we get a call. And of course, my first question is, did you do an inspection? Inspection was done yesterday. How did it go? And me and Natalie spoke, and we feel that everything is great, or you may want to get a credit or ask for repairs. It's kind of your second layer of renegotiating potentially. Just don't tell me that you want the attorney to send everything in the report to the other attorney, because at the end of the day, you may kill the deal, being that there might be some nuances that don't play a huge role in the transaction. And you might be okay with the GFCI outlets being outdated because you put an offer 100,000 below ask. Okay. So once the contract is sent out, and in New York, it's sent by the seller's attorney, and the seller's attorney will send the contract to the buyer's attorney. Okay. And our journey begins with a well-structured contract where the buyer's attorney will take the steps and the precautions to shield and protect your interest, ensuring to be a transparent and smooth transaction as possible. So everything that we put in the addendum and the riders of the contract, or extension of the contract, is to make sure to protect your legal rights of the property. We want to have a smooth as possible transaction. Now let's break it down a little bit. The key components of a real estate contract includes the property details, property addresses, block and lot. It includes the names of the sellers and buyers. It includes a purchase price, which can be renegotiated after the inspection potentially. And of course, critical contingencies such as a mortgage contingency, contingent upon getting approved for a mortgage or board approval if you're buying a co-op in order to protect, continue with the process and transaction. So it might seem overwhelming, but hey, fear not. That's why you have a team of real estate agents, mortgage lenders, law firm working together, advisors that can come to a conclusion and navigate this legal landscape, let's call it, to ensure all the compliances and protect your rights to negotiate in your favor, right? Once the contract is signed, you usually write a deposit check of 5 to 10%. The buyer signs the contract, we send it to the sales attorney. Sales attorney has their client sign the contract. That's called a fully executed contract, at which point the mortgage lender takes over, starts working on their appraisal, which is the value of the property. As the buyer's attorneys, they order the title report, and the title report is crucial to make sure that there's no violations, no liens, no something that's going to give us a hiccup in order not to schedule a closing, right? So it's our responsibility to make sure that you have a clean, it's called a title, and you don't buy somebody else's dirty laundry, okay? More importantly, that we keep everybody in the loop. So collaboration is key. In a real estate transaction, there's multiple stakeholders, including other attorneys and other realtors, title companies, home insurance agents, mortgage lenders, of course, and we work together for one same goal, and that's a successful transaction. And being well connected is important. The add-on value that we bring is that we could preliminary review the actual address to see if there's any open judgments, a DOB, or we check the different websites to make sure that there is no hold on the road, in a sense. There's no potholes, there are no pitfalls that we're going to see, okay? And that's kind of where we go through the process. The mortgage lender then, of course, gives us something called a clear to close. So once the file and the mortgage lender says, hey, your file is ready to schedule, the money is ready, just go ahead and get everybody on the same page. They give us key dates as to when your rate expiring, which is very important. Rate expiration, we want to close within that time frame. And there's a lot more details to go with that, of course, but just as a scope of the representation, we schedule it with the bank attorney, the seller's attorney, title company. Both the real estate agents need to do what's called a walkthrough 2 days, a day or two before the actual closing, to make sure that as per the inspection and as you saw the property is the same way, everything's got to be in working order, more or less, depending on how the contract is structured. Guys, even if the contract says, or the seller's attorney or the seller says it's as is, as you see, you buy it, in our contract, it's still got to be in working order. Okay, roof has to be free of leaks. Okay, so that goes without saying. It's in contractual obligation of the seller to make sure to deliver everything in working order. The only as is, and contracts are usually auction properties. Okay. Other than that, you do your final walkthrough with your buyer's agent and you coordinate with the listing agent. There's this one agent involved. And then, of course, what happens next is that we schedule a closing. You come to a closing table. The bank attorney provides all the banking documents saying rate that you locked it in. Everything should be already have been explained to you prior to coming to the closing table. You should know your rate. You should have an idea of your mortgage payments. There shouldn't be any serious surprises. In case there are, we tackle it at the closing table. Hopefully we don't. And if there's something that's not working, we try to get you a credit of something, or we could put some money aside in a called escrow account, where after the closing, post-closing, we could address those concerns as well. So again, successful transaction is the collaboration of everybody involved. We have a successful closing. You get the keys at the closing table. You say, thank you very much. We take a picture. You give us, Natalia give us a Zillow review. You get some Yelp reviews and Google reviews. And credibility is huge, right? So we want to make sure you're working with people that are out there, that are working for you and for your best interest. Essentially, that's my spiel. Oops.
No, that was great. That was great. And I would say one thing I appreciate about you guys is you're personable and you're responsive, and that's very important throughout the transaction. I have worked with multiple attorneys where there's not a lot of communication and it's very just dry and straight to the point. And that, like, I feel like it's important to have that kind of rapport and relationship with the clients. So they feel comfortable, they feel at ease. I've had buyers stressing, they went ahead and chose their own attorney. And then throughout the process, they're stressing because their attorney is causing them stress by not answering or they're not listening. Little things that have come up where I can appreciate everybody at Moshi's Law, where they're not like that. Like, it's a different personality. I think that's really important, at least for
I
myself.
think the pillar of our firm is, to summarize it, is communication, follow-up, and responsibility. So that's what you want from any service business, especially a law firm. I mean, every service business should be giving you the responsiveness, the communication, and the follow-up that you need and deserve. And that's how we can, avoid the common pitfalls. And more importantly, to make sure that all the buyers timely documents, the mission, we work well together. And without communication, you won't be able to work together to say, hey, my rate expiring, we have to close tomorrow. And you're like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me this 2 weeks ago? So, we have a system of checks and balances. We have emails that go out and constant over communication. I prefer that way. That way, the mortgage lender's in the loop, the realtor in the loop, and everybody's copied on the same emails to make sure that we're moving in the same direction and the goal to close the transaction. And contractually, the whole point of a contract, in case we can't get to a successful transaction, we want to pull you out of the contract, get your deposit money back. Let's find you a new property, or if things don't work out. And so you want to make sure that, you surround yourself with a team, like a table with 4 legs that can get you to the closing table.
Perfect. I love that. Dimitri, you're back.
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry, guys. I had a power surge.
That's okay. Okay, we're still here. Right, so we've gone through, we've closed, and then we want to go into, let's introduce Jenny, because she has a lot of good information about protecting your investment, and even, I believe you wanted to go over too how they can use certain things for their down payments, correct? Where they can find that money.
Yes, absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So a lot of the times when someone is looking to purchase a home, they don't even realize that they have this 401k or they have this IRA where they might be able to tap into, or sometimes we have our wonderful Latino market, right? Because I'm from Ecuador, that we have this under the mattress situation, which really happens. I know it sounds like, oh, it's like cliche, but it's a real thing. Okay. And I've had clients that are like, oh, how can I pay for my life insurance? And they'll go underneath the couch to give me the premium. Number one, I can't take any cash from you. So I'm gonna go to the Louis Vuitton store. We cannot take cash from you. So these are things that you can just easily explain to someone. And it's just a matter of learning, right? Okay, we can have, there are other options. So instead of leaving this money there, and we love you for it, and we think it's great that you've been able to save it and accumulate all these assets under your mattress. However, they will best serve you if you invest it. And one of the best investments you could make is purchasing a home. One home, two homes, three homes, four or five homes. It's a really good opportunity. So I say this to you from a great point of view, because I am a financial advisor. I have my investment license. I help people invest in the stock market, right? IRAs, mutual funds, annuities, college savings programs, and those are really good. But I've never seen a better rate of return than when you purchase a home. And that is just being transparent and being real, and just giving you that perspective, right? So if we're looking to purchase a home, guys, which it's probably everybody's dream. I've met people that that's not their dream, and that's okay. But for most of us on here who join this seminar, we want to buy a house or we want to buy multiple properties. There is money there. You may have some assets that we can look into. So we just have to explore a little bit. Sometimes we inherit some money and we think we can't use it. And yes, we can. Sometimes we have this big settlement that we've used that we can take a lump sum instead of taking monthly payments. Speak to your attorney. If you have a great one like the Igor organization over here, right? Then you're going to have someone who can guide you properly to do things. And I agree with you 100%. Follow up and just being in touch with somebody is so important. I have an update for you that I have no update, but I just wanted to update you that I have no update, and that's my update. And people love it. Okay, so you have no update. Yes. And they go, thank you so much for letting me know. It's the little things that count. Sometimes because we're so busy, we skip that step of just a quick text. Hey, you know what? I don't have anything for you, but I promise you, as soon as I do, I'll keep you in the loop. I'll message you tomorrow. And that's all people want, right? As a consumer, that's what we want. If somebody treats me like that, I'm like, man, they have a successful business. They have it going on. And I want to do business with them and I want to refer them to people, right? So home ownership is beautiful, right? So now let's just say we've gone through all of these steps with Natalia, Demetrius, and Igor. They've done an amazing job getting you to the closing table. And now you've purchased this home. What comes after that? A few things. The first one is we want to make sure that we have life insurance protecting that asset, because I'm sure these wonderful panelists here would agree that we've worked hard, to accrue this money to purchase this home. You had to maybe work night shifts, or the Mr. and the Mrs. had to get an extra job, or you had to have someone help you with the loan process. You worked so hard for the bank to come back and take it away from you if you don't pay for it, right? So it's a very important thing, if the primary breadwinner passes away, that the home is paid for. So imagine if somebody passes away and now your mortgage is paid off. Hey, there are less tears coming down, okay? That's for sure. And now all you're going to do is suffer the loss of your loved one, but you're not going to suffer the anxiety of how am I going to pay the bills, pay the mortgage, send the children to school, and be okay financially. And that's where I come in and we talk about something affordable, what your goal might be. Maybe you can't, you're not in a position financially, because we want to honor where you're at, where you can cover the entire $800,000 mortgage, but maybe half is still better than nothing. And then there's so much you can do with that money. Even let's just say you're in a great position and you don't need your spouse to make the payments. You can utilize that money when they do pass away to, guess what, guys? Purchase another home, or maybe 3 or 4 other properties, because you have this $400,000, $500,000 that you can invest properly, right? So that's a really good thing. We can go to the next slide, please. And so what happens here? Just a small visual. We have mom and dad. I think if you click one more, will appear the husband. We always disappear the husband first. So let's just say we could go back. If the primary breadwinner, now most of the time, because men don't necessarily take care of their health, and I'm not generalizing, or maybe we don't talk about our feelings. We have these, heart attacks. A lot of things happen because we don't want to go when something doesn't feel right. And then sometimes it's too late. Statistically speaking, we go to these classes and it's a lot of, it's really interesting. So usually men pass away first. That's why you won't see the husband there. But if there's an income, we have $3,500 each. Let's just say they both make, mom and dad are both working spouses. They make income $3,500 each. Now husband passes away or wife passes away. We have these $3,500 missing from that. We have to pay our mortgage, our car, insurance, credit cards, utilities, groceries, childcare. Who here has children? All right, or is at least willing to admit so, right? I have one. People have children are expensive. Childcare is no joke, especially if you're trying to provide a beautiful life for your children. So all of these things cost money. If we brought children into this world, we want to make sure that they're taken care of, and that if you're gone, everything is okay. And so the top thing here, which is what brings us all together, is the mortgage. We want to make sure we're able to keep the mortgage. So these wonderful people you have here don't just want to help you with a transaction. They also want to make sure that you keep that home, that as a team, everybody worked, including yourself, to get you to the closing table. So thank you so much for your time. I love doing these seminars and these videos. I love what I do. If you need to get in touch with me, there's my information. And I'd like to thank the three panelists too for inviting me and joining, for all of you joining us on here. And thank you, Natalia.
Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that. And like I said, when we first met, you really opened my mindset too on like how you can really help our clients, right? Because a lot of people don't want to talk about, things like life insurance and wills and what's going to happen, when we pass away. Like we don't plan ahead because we don't want to have that conversation because it gets uncomfortable. But I feel like having that up front can save a lot of stress and, like you said, a lot of tears, and you're already going through a lot. So do what's good for your family and leave them in a better place, right? Help them. So I think that's why I love having you on here. I think you're a great addition to these seminars. So we can go ahead and jump into a little Q&A and see what questions we have. This is going to be for Demetrius. What documents are required for self-employed clients? Is there something that I guess they're asking if there's something different when they're self-employed?
Sure. It would be the last 2 years of your tax returns. That's where we would really start. And then once we have that, we can determine if, K1s are needed, a profit and loss statement is needed, a cash flow statement is needed. So I would start there with the last 2 years of your full tax returns.
Okay. So they need at least a minimum of 2, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then I believe you might have touched on this. What's the least down payment? Is there concern they don't have a lot of money saved?
Sure. So you have two options. One would be a conventional mortgage, which would be a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac product, which is 3% down. That's the minimum. FHA is 3.5% down is the minimum. And if you qualify for a VA loan, there's no money down.
Perfect. Another question we have. Igor, in regards to contract, I guess they're asking what happens if they need to cancel the contract? Like how much time do they have?
Great question. Obviously, we try to avoid canceling the contract, but many instances where sellers and buyers remorse and they change their minds, Remember, you signed a contractual obligation to purchase the property. So one of the major things is a mortgage contingency, which if the appraisal value or the value of your property, it comes in less than the purchase price and the loan amount does not approve you, a lender like Demetrius can give me with something called a cancellation or denial letter, and we'll provide that to a sales attorney and we'll get our client's deposit money back. If in case we also have an additional clause called the funding clause. During the pandemic, there's a lot of non-QM banks that were not funding. And so people didn't know what planet they're going to be living there tomorrow or if they're going to be alive tomorrow. So that funding clause saved 95% of our clients to cancel the contract and get the deposit money back. And real quick, if anybody's buying co-ops, a board approval is necessary. And in case the board denies you for any reason, you will get your money back and deposit back. So those are the major three things to get your money back. And we ensure that in the contract as well.
Perfect. Somebody asked, I guess, with interest rates and refinancing, what does it mean to refinance? Is that like starting all over?
Look, we have to show in any scenario, great question, by the way, whether it's a purchase or a refinance transaction, we always have to show the underwriter our ability to repay that mortgage, right? We have to be able to afford it. So, we would have to take an application all over again, provide income documents because things change, right? You might have changed employer, you might be earning more money saved, which is, compensating factors, your credit score changed as well. However, the one thing you do want to consider, and this is an important factor, the fees associated with a refinance transaction are lower than they would be for a purchase transaction.
Perfect. Igor, do you want to talk a little bit about seller's concessions?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've
I've
actually done a ton of trainings recently as of last year in May, and this was a non-question during the pandemic where everything's flying off the shelves over asking. But in today's market, as Demetrius, I'm sure will point out, there's something called a buy down of the interest rates. And especially with the new NARS, lawsuit and everything of that sort, which we're not going to get into, but seller's concession is more important than anything else. It is a seller's credit towards closing costs. So in other words, it's between 3 to 6%, depending on the loan. If it's conventional, FHA, VA, or investment property at 2%. End of the day, what it helps you is finance your actual money out of pocket. So less money out of pocket. And towards the transaction, you're financing the closing cost into the transaction. So when you're in the future, you decide to refinance, you already have equity in the property, and it just makes it life much easier putting down 3.5% to 5% down payment and having that closing cost covered into the loan amount. And today's closing cost is a lot higher than it was a year, 2 or 3 years ago. You're paying, etc. for the interest rate, essentially, and you definitely want to have 2 or 3% sales concession credit, I believe, built into the contract every step of the way. It doesn't have to be part of your offer, which makes you a less of a buyer, but it rather can be negotiated during the contractual stage when we get the deal sheets, and you can let me know, hey, let's work together. We need this sales credit, or we want it. We may not need it, but it's always desirable to have it. So Demetrius will let us know, say, hey, listen, if you can get 3%, 4% sales concession towards closing cost, and we'll, speak to the other attorney and make the deal work. The beautiful part is that we're connected at Moshe's Law. So we know the other side of the transaction. And most of the time, we know the realtors of the other side. And so on the selling side of it, we'll give it. We'll explain to our seller correctly. On the buying side of it, we ask for it. And that's why it's so important to work as a team to make sure that we all go in there on the same page and get into the closing table on the same page. Super important.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so that about covered the questions that came in. I don't know if there's anything else anyone else wanted to add before we wrap it up. Go ahead, Jenny.
So I wanted to ask a question. I always want to learn. So this is for Igor. Uh, what do you do when there are open violations? How do you help the client decide, or the potential buyer? What do you do with that exactly? How do you handle it?
Great question. So one of our added value is that when a client comes in and says, you know, I want to buy 123 Main Street, the first thing I'll do is I'll look it up in something called Property Shark, which kind of binds together all the Department of Buildings, HPDs, all the violation, open permits, and I'll take a glance at the property. I may even email a title company to ask them if there's something called a certificate of occupancy, if there's any open permits. So we'll tackle that before the contract, and in our contract, make sure that everything's closed out if we're on the buyer side. If we're on the seller side, we encourage the seller to work with an expediter that can close out these permits or give us a timeline potentially for all the violations and issues that can be closed out. Maybe a credit to the buyer to avoid all the delays in the process. Most lenders may not need municipalities, so they may not care about some of these violations, depending on the nature of it. And that's probably a piggyback to Demetrius to see, you know, what their lenders may or may not care about if they even need a CO. But at the end of the day, you know, our job is to get the deal to the closing table. And you might have to get a credit or an escrow, depending on the comfortability of the seller and the buyer. Great question.
Do you always disclose? Like, let's just say there are open permits. Do you tell listen, these are the open permits, so that I guess the potential buyer has the opportunity to decide, you know, do I want to take this as is, or are we going to work towards, you know, getting it all situated?
100%. Depending on the open permit, it can be open permit for a 2-family and it's a 1-family. So that could be a more bigger of an issue to close it out, or, you know, so we 100% have an obligation to the buyers to let them know what's happening on the buyer's attorney side, and let them know what the open permits are and how to tackle them if a credit is desirable, or if, you know what, this is going to be too much for you to vacate order, or whatever the situation may be. Even though the bank may say we may not care about it, or the bank attorney says we don't really need it, we can still close with it. As the buyer's attorney's representation, like responsibility to our buyers is to inform them every step of the way for every little thing that could possibly go wrong, or negotiate for them to get to the closing table. Remember, we're deal makers, we're not deal breakers.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's about just having that transparency with them, because I have had clients who didn't care about violations, and if they were able to close, they would close. But there was also people that don't want to deal with it. And a lot of it does have to deal with, like, how much is it going to cost them, right, to fix the violation, because they're basically going to own it, right, after they close.
Sure. Yeah, remember, I mean, to wrap it up, it's just like knowledge is power. So if the more knowledgeable you are about the violation or any issue that may arise, let's have the representatives, and working with Natalia and working, I'm sure, with Jenny and Demetrius, myself, we could provide you the resources. So use the resources that you have in your pocket to make sure you're well advised of what the next step would be. If it's, like I said, a credit, or just understand what the issues may arise from. And we get a lot of times, oh, I bought it this way. Well, you know, you bought it this way doesn't mean it's
very common here.
You did a good job there. So our job is to be as resourceful as possible, you know, to make sure that everything's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I had a for sale by owner telling one of my buyers that it was a legal 3-family. I was like, no, ma'am, it's a 2-family. She's like, no, there's
But
3
it's
meters.
taxed as
like,
a 3-family.
Doesn't matter. And that basement is not legal.
Speaking of 2 and 3 families, Demetrius, can you share? I have a question for you real quick. I know there's something happened with the down payment. Is it true that you don't have to put a credential 20% now on a 2-family, 3-family house?
Correct. It's going live November 18th. So the minimum would be 5% down on 2 to 4 family units. The loan limits, though, are being adjusted slightly lower than the conforming loan limits. In addition to that, FHA loan limits have been raised to 2 million from 1 million. So yeah, something to keep in mind here. Yeah, 5% down on primary owner-occupied multifamily home.
Amazing. That's you know, I feel like that, you know, the lenders today are understanding the New York market, and they're driving it towards, you know, higher loan amounts and more power and ability for purchasers to buy houses, which is great. It's just a matter of educating the buyers and educating the whole, market to make sure that we're all moving in that same, predicament.
Yeah, I agree. Or I mean, look, like I said, buying a home is an exciting event. At the same time, we want to be prepared for the journey. As a first time home buyer, you really do. Because having, enough information will allow you to make the right decision.
Exactly. Natalia, thank you for all having us all
Yeah.
here. Any other
Yeah,
questions that any of your home buyers may be asking about?
Sorry, say that one more time. It went out on my end.
No, I'm just asking if there's any questions that any question answers. I mean, we could be easily reachable, and I'm sure you could
Right.
share all of our contact information and teamwork. Thank you. Happy Saturday. Happy Veterans Day.
Yeah, everybody have a good
Yeah.
weekend. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining us. And yes, we'll be reaching out to actually set up personalized consultations and see where everybody's at and how we can help them move forward.
Awesome, awesome. We hope this seminar brought encouragement and direction to everyone.
All right. Thank you,
We
everybody.
appreciate you
Enjoy
all.
your
Yep.
weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Bye.